Are your rules fiddly? I've got a scenario here that I think I could use some input on, and I think someone's understanding or implementation of a rule system can be tested here, just given the way that some cards interact. So I'll set up the scenario and then let's see how it should or could play out. My hero currently is Morgan. Morgan has the ability that as an action, I can exhaust her to bury one card on my tenacity. That's this resource system up here. These cards sit in play. I can bury, so discard one of these cards to play another card with the exact same cost. A very powerful ability. So, why would we want to do this? Well, a lot of reasons, but some cards that cost 0, as you can see some playtest material right here, some cards that cost 0 are really good to get rid of. And in this specific deck, a lot of cards don't really do much, but do something really cool or have an effect when this on buried, once again playtest card, when this is buried, the next card you play costs 1 less resource and you get to ready one of your tenacity cards. So where previously it might be exhausted and unusable, now you can ready it to make it usable again. So when this card is buried, you can do some really cool things. As well, there are some other cards that care about this. Specifically, we have Reanimate, which is a skill, which maybe is a better example than Morgan, which says bury a card, play one from your discard pile. So a lot of things you can do. So let's also take a look at Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont. So Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont has 2 abilities. An action, exhaust it to deal 2 damage to your opponent, or as a reaction, after it's buried, you can add an enhancement from your discard pile to your hand. So, the scenario is set up like, let's go like this. You have a hand of cards, you have some cards in your tenacity, specifically Skeletal Servant. And I say, I've got specifically also Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont, with this 3-cost card, is in my discard pile. So, I'm gonna activate Morgan's ability. It says, in bold text, discard or bury one of your tenacity cards. So that's the cost of the ability. I'm going to bury Skeletal Servant. If you have 4 or less cards in your tenacity, which I have none, you may free play up to 1 undead from your discard pile with a cost equal to or less than the number of open spaces. So if I discard a card from here, I can play an undead card from my discard pile for free. Free play it. Which I would choose Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont. And then, cool, great, awesome. In this case, I was testing, well, what if it came into play exhausted as a balancing mechanic? So I discard a card from my tenacity, I place Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont into my tenacity exhausted. Now, I think that doesn't get a lot of value for the card I just played, but on follow turns, it might. And so now I'm thinking, well, if I just buried the Skeletal Servant, which has a reaction ability on bury, then I can then ready one of my cards. So now this card works perfectly well with the kids. But is that what's supposed to happen? So there's a lot of moving parts to this. So I don't know what's correct because it should be streamlined. The first step in the process is to pay the cost. Action, exhaust, discard one of your tenacity cards. Boom, done. Is it at this point I stop resolving the mechanic to perform this reaction ability? When buried, ready a card and the next card I play this turn costs 1 less. Or do I continue with the ability? Let's say, okay, screw it. You just continue the ability. Okay, cool. Morgan says, if you have 4 or less tenacity cards, which I do, free play up to 1 undead card with a cost equal to or less than the open spaces. So free play a card. Well, I'm gonna free play Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont. And let's say exhausted. So now, do I go through the whole process of playing the card, resolve its effects, do whatever it says, and put it into play exhausted? And then after this entire ability resolves, do I then get to resolve this ability? That's the question. Do I interrupt this ability to perform this ability before it's completely done? And in that case, does that mean the cost and the effect is one single step that I don't get to interrupt at any time? Now, let's see if I can add one more layer of complexity to this. Let's say I have one Skeletal Servant, and I have... can I find another Skeletal Servant? I can, yes. Let's start right here. I've got 2 Skeletal Servants. So if I let's say play activate Morgan's ability. Let's put Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont back in the discard pile. I activate the ability to play Skeletal Servant. Let's add Reanimate to the pile as well, too. Discard for Morgan's ability. And then I play Reanimate. So I free play Reanimate, which says bury 1 Tenacity card, free play 1 card from your discard pile. Then I can bury another Skeletal Servant, and then free play 1 from my discard pile. I could then play a Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont. And then Reanimate would be here. And now, would I go back then to this Skeletal Servant if I have multiple triggers that happen based off of this? Because this says free play a card. Does that mean the free play of this cannot be interrupted as well? There's some things to this, because if cards can, or abilities can play other cards, in what way do we break that up? Do we say, well, if you're going to resolve a new thing, that means then you have to resolve everything that's waiting for the other thing? Or is there a way to unravel that? I think there are ways to look at like Magic and the stack system, chaining like in Yu-Gi-Oh! I know that Riftbound also has something. Is it also chains as well? That I think it starts to get into a little bit hairy, because when you have a relatively simple game and you introduce concepts that technically can break that simpleness with something as easy as a reaction and then triggering other ability, an ability that can trigger other abilities, you have to say that somewhere in there's got to be a gap. So how should this resolve? Well, I have one idea. And that is a card that has a cost and an ability should be done all at once, and then after that card has resolved, then everything that triggered based off of that cost and effect can then be triggered after it. So let's see what the simple one looks like. So that would be Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont in our discard pile, Skeletal Servant in our Tenacity. I activate Morgan. As an action, I exhaust and discard one of my Tenacity cards, and then I free play 1 card exhausted. Then the ability is completely done resolving, and now my Skeletal Servant says on bury, which I just did. I get to now ready a card, and boom. Nice and easy. This obviously plays very well into this effect and this card synergy. Now let's take a look at the example we just had, which is a little bit more complicated because it has one extra step or two of moving parts. I've got 2 Skeletal Servants, and I say, okay, on my turn, I'm going to, as an action, exhaust, discard a Skeletal Servant, and I'm going to play then 1 undead card, Reanimate. And Reanimate says, bury 1 Tenacity card, free play 1 card from your discard pile. I'm going to free play Mr. and Miss... I'm going to play a Skeletal Servant, I don't know. Then Morgan's ability says, great, you've played it. Or I guess I would want to play this, huh? There we go. I play Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont, not the Skeletal Servant. And it comes into play exhausted. Now, finally, the Skeletal Servant activates after this has been played from this ability to say, okay, on bury, the next card costs 1 less, and then ready a card. That feels a little weird because it feels like you want to interact with this card. That like playing a card should be something you can interact with or react to. But you kind of have to wait because this whole card says, well, you have to do a thing before you can do a thing. So I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's a streamlined way of saying, if you're doing an ability, resolve that and then resolve everything after that that happens because of it. So, yeah, that's it's a weird one. Obviously, this is playtesting. I can very clearly change the card effects so this isn't a problem, or isn't a problem like now. But I feel like as a game gets a little bit more interactive, becomes more complex and a little more intricate and playful with its designs and its card effects, you're gonna run into these, and you need a way, in my mind, systematically to approach these steps. And I think that's why the stack system for Magic the Gathering works so well. And I say works so well very in quotes because Magic is an insanely complex game with incredibly complex rules from its card designs. And the way they interact is so specific, and although there is a step-by-step process, it's still quite difficult to understand when some parts should be done, but there is a laid out process for it. So, what the heck? What do we do here? Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to go back to playtesting, I think, and figure out what makes the most sense and see if I can recreate a scenario like this and see what makes the most sense from other decks and cards perspective. But I think overall, keeping something limited to whatever a text box says and not being able to interrupt that is probably the way to go, and a good rule of thumb. Even still, knowing that there could be some ramifications down the line, I think it's a succinct way to say, hey, just do what the card says, and then if something needs to react because of that, okay, do it after. So, thank you so much for watching. Wherever you are, whenever you are in the world, I hope you have a great day, night, morning, weekend, whatever it is, wherever it is, and I hope to see you in whatever the next video is. So, see ya.